What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as Miami, the U, taking down number 9 Georgia Tech yet again. Is the U back in terms of women's volleyball? And can they make the NCAA tournament? And speaking of the ACC, how about Pitt pulling off a reverse sweep over Louisville? Huge for the Panthers, and they weren't the only ones that pulled off a reverse sweep this past weekend. Florida State outlasted North Carolina as they and Pitt are tied atop the ACC standings. We also had some other notable NCAA women's volleyball results, and we had a lot of teams clinching their spot in the NCAA tournament. And we had Mater Dei winning the CIF State Open Division championship over Archbishop Mitty. How did the Monarchs of Santa Ana take down the Monarchs of San Jose? Also, we have a little bit of NCAA men's volleyball to discuss, and a little bit of AVP volleyball, and some NJCAA volleyball to discuss. So hand me a volleyball. Set the net, because I'm about to serve up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday evening, Monday afternoon, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 221 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on, formerly known as Twitter, X, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook page. All you just have to do is type in the word IE Sports and then radio in the search bar, like us, and then boom. That's how you're able to get your updates on all things sports on Facebook. Also, we have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you'll see all of our amazing podcasts, including this one, and you'll also see it's an updated website, by the way, and you'll also see our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. Because for the past 9 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit www.planetjerky.net and place your order, and then soon you will have that delicious Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky in your fingertips. And for a limited time, their prices are slashed from what I saw, as some of their bags of jerky have gone from $15 all the way down to $10, and some of their bigger bags of jerky have gone down from $30 to $20, and from what I heard, shipping is free on every purchase of $50 or more. Once again, a huge shout to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram, at set_point.iesr. You can also follow me, Teran Rodriguez, at Teran Rodriguez1 on X, mainly, at Teran Rodriguez1. By the way, my interviews will mainly be on Instagram, so if I forget to post them on X, I apologize. But with all that said and done, let us begin. So we have a lot to get into in the world of NCAA women's volleyball. So this actually started all on Wednesday, as we'll travel down to the Big 12 to go over number 17, Kansas taking down number 23, Baylor in straight sets, 25-16, 25-17, and 25-21. Kansas was led by Reagan Cooper, who had 17 kills, while Aya El Nadi had 12 kills. Kansas hit a blazing 452 while holding Baylor to 271, as defense didn't really exist in this game. But I will say this, neither did serving as well, as both teams combined for 17 service errors. Big oof. As Baylor was led by Ali Sizek and Elise McGee, who each had 12 kills, while Manuela Bibinbe had 11 kills. So my takeaway for Baylor is this. I just don't think Baylor is not the same team as they were a few years ago. They'll probably still get into the NCAA tournament just because they've played a tough schedule, but I don't see them going this far. For Kansas, this was basically expected, just because Baylor was on the road, and Kansas, more often than not, is a fairly good team. I know they struggled against Texas, but there was no way in heck that Kansas was going to lose this one, especially since they had such a busy week with playing BYU as well, which we'll get into a little bit later. Staying within the Big 12, we had number 5 Texas taking down Iowa State in 4 sets, 25-14, 24-26, 25-18, and 25-20. This win eventually locked up the Big 12 championship for Texas, as they wound up winning their 7th straight Big 12 championship. My takeaway for Texas is this. They don't really lose a whole lot of conference matches, and it's been, almost 10 years since they last lost a conference match at home. So for Texas, this was to be expected. That second set was kind of a blip, but it was nothing that they couldn't bounce back from, as Maddie Skinner was just a beast. She had 22 kills, Jenna Wenas 15 kills, Molly Phillips 8 kills, Bella Bergmark and Asia O'Neal each had 6 kills. Well, Emma Halter had 20 digs, as I think she's coming in as her own, while Skinner had 14 digs. Texas hit 282 while holding Iowa State to 123. Iowa State was led by Annie Hatch, who had 11 kills, but that's kind of where the buck stopped, as the next kill leader was Jordan Hopp and Maya Duckworth, both having 8 kills. My takeaway for Iowa State is this. There's no shame in losing to Texas at Texas. The fact that they even took a set off them is still rather impressive, if you ask me. So, in my opinion, honestly, I kind of had a feeling this was going to be the case for Iowa State. I just didn't think that they had any sort of hope of possibly beating Texas on the road. Now, if it were at Iowa State, maybe they would have had a chance, but it wasn't going to happen. I don't even think even at Iowa State it would have happened. So for Iowa State, it's no shame in losing to the reigning national champion and a team that has not lost a home conference match in about 10 years. So they just have to take the slump and move on. Jumping over to the SEC, we had a thriller in the SEC. We had number 10 Arkansas reverse sweeping Ole Miss. Ole Miss won the first 2 sets, 25-21 and 25-23. But then Arkansas took the third set, 25-21. They stormed through the fourth set, 25-15. And then the fifth set, the Razorbacks took that one, 15-8. My takeaway for Arkansas is this. It's a win no matter what happens. As a win is a win, as they basically stayed within striking distance of Kentucky, as Jill Gillen led the way with 24 kills. She had 333, and she added 16 digs. Maggie Cartwright had 15 kills, while Taylor Head added 17 kills. The only thing I will say about Arkansas is this, for my takeaway. They can't play with fire. They cannot reverse sweep every single night, because this isn't going to be a healthy habit, and soon, once they play a team that is a little bit higher level than them, a la Kentucky that's coming up, they're going to need to break out of that habit of starting off slow. Because Ole Miss had nothing really to lose. Ole Miss unfortunately just could not get that big breakout win, as sadly they missed out on an upset, as they're led by Julia Dias, who had 19 kills, while Nia Washington and Peyton Broch both had 10 kills. My takeaway for Ole Miss is this. It's no shame in almost winning, but they kind of... We all thought Arkansas is who we thought they were. An actual top 10, maybe top 15 team. It's just that Arkansas, like I said, they just can't get off to a slow start. And for Ole Miss, no shame in losing to a team like Arkansas, which is senior-laden and has a lot of talent. I mean, yes, Arkansas isn't the tallest team in the world, but they still have a lot of players that can jump out the gym. And honestly, Ole Miss would have needed to play practically perfect volleyball the rest of the way. And once Arkansas took that fourth set, all bets were off in terms of winning that game. Jumping over to Friday's matches, we had Miami of Florida taking down number 9 Georgia Tech in straight sets, 25-23, 25-20, and 26-24. The Hurricanes were led by Grace Lopez, who had 22 kills, while Flo Marie Heredia Colon added 12 kills. Angela Grieve chipped in 8 kills, as Miami only hit 250, but it's still pretty solid. They also had 8.5 blocks to Georgia Tech 7. They outdug Georgia Tech 43-41, and they held Georgia Tech to without a service ace, even though they missed 9 serves compared to Tech's 3. Georgia Tech was led by Bianca Bertolino, who had 13 kills, while Tamara Oteen added 12 kills. My takeaway for Georgia Tech is this. This is the match that basically blew their chances of winning the ACC. Because now, with this loss, they can no longer finish atop the ACC. They were already one game back of Florida State and Pitt, and they were log-jammed with Louisville for second place. And this game pretty much has upped the ante in terms of losing it. And the worst part is that they lost to Miami a second time. You would think Georgia Tech would have learned something the first go-around. And maybe this is the case that Miami is much better than what we had thought we previously had known. But honestly, I just thought that Georgia Tech was so disappointing. But I have to give it up to Miami. They brought the heat, and they knew if they wanted to solidify a spot in the playoff or in the NCAA tournament, they needed to win this game, and they did, which was a very good win on their part. Staying pretty much down south and heading down to the Big 12, we had Iowa State taking down number 21 Houston in 5 sets, as Iowa State won the first 2 sets, 25-19 and 25-23. But then Houston kind of took off and won the third set, 25-18. Then rolled to the fourth set, 25-15. And then Iowa State just inched past Houston in that fifth set, 16-14. My takeaway for Iowa State is this. They really brought back the heat. They really brought back their intensity. And I really was impressed by the way that they bounced back from that loss to Texas. I really think Iowa State deserves a spot in the tournament, but I could say that for a lot of teams that are vying for a tournament spot, as Iowa State was led by Nayeli Gonzalez, who had 15 kills, while Jordan Hopp had 14 kills. Lily Wackles had 11 kills. In terms of digs, Iowa State outdug Houston 68-62, and Iowa State outblocked Houston 11-5.5. They had double the amount of blocks that Houston had as a team, and they didn't really win the serve-pass battle in terms of aces and service errors, but they still had 5 aces, and they missed 12 serves, yes, but Houston did miss 11, as Houston was led by Kenna Sauer, who had 19 kills, while Abby Jackson added 15 kills. Houston did out-hit Iowa State 240-224, but unfortunately, Houston just could not win on their home floor. And my takeaway for Houston is this. If they're going to make another deep run in the NCAA tournament, they're actually going to have to beat teams that they know that they can beat. Because if they can't beat a team like Iowa State, in which, no offense, Iowa State is vastly underrated, I don't know if they have a shot against the big-time teams in the NCAA tournament. So I just don't think that Houston... I mean, they'll probably win a NCAA tournament match, but winning maybe 2 and advancing to another Sweet 16 is kind of out of the cards, in my opinion. Staying within the Big 12 and heading down to Provo, Utah, we have number 17 Kansas taking down number 13 BYU, as BYU took the first set 25-23, but Kansas wound up running the table the next three sets, 25-20, 25-23, and 25-22. There was a point in the match where BYU had no more challenges, and they couldn't challenge any close touches on the net. So sadly for BYU, they kind of unfortunately wound up, they didn't really use their challenges all that well. And some of their challenges sadly backfired. But it is what it is for BYU. They risked it for the biscuit, and sadly their biscuits got burnt. As Kansas was led by Reagan Cooper, who had 25 kills, while Aya El Nadi had 18 kills to go along with 10 digs. For BYU, they were led by Aaron Livingston, who had 21 kills, while Mia Lee and Whitney McEwan Larenas each had 11 kills. Something I did not know about BYU is that they do not have Claire Little, as she was a stud. She's a stud freshman, and I've kind of talked about her. She was having a great season, and then she got injured. So without Claire Little, I don't know how much of a big impact she makes, but I imagine she would definitely help out in a BYU team that is in need of a boost. Because now, honestly, this is a little concerning for BYU. Now they're back on the bubble of, do they deserve a top 16 overall seed, aka the chance to host regionals? Because losing to Kansas now reinforces the whole narrative of, does Kansas deserve a spot in hosting in the top 16 in the regionals? So I think Kansas, and some people have said Kansas has locked up a top 16 seed. I'll believe it when I see it, but for BYU, I don't know if they are in the contention of making it in the top 16 and hosting regionals, because you also have Purdue, you have Penn State, you have other teams on the cusp that could be hosting the top 16, aka the regionals. And for BYU, I kind of think that they missed the bus on this one. And speaking of Purdue, that's a perfect segue to go into this matchup right here. Oh man. Purdue. This one was a doozy right here, as number 16 Purdue upset number 3 Wisconsin in 5 sets at Holloway Gymnasium in West Lafayette. Wisconsin won the first set 25-22. Purdue wound up winning the next two 25-19 and 25-20. Wisconsin just blew the fourth set wide open, winning it 25-20 or 25-12. And then the fifth set was very close, as Purdue wound up winning the fifth set 16-14, as we even had a late challenge after Purdue got to 15. So, a late challenge by Wisconsin, as it looked like Purdue had wound up winning 15-13, but then Wisconsin challenged, and then eventually they still eventually wound up winning, as Purdue was led by Eva Hudson, who had a whopping 30 kills. She had 333, and she had 11 digs. Very impressive. Raven Colvin added 14 kills, while Chloe Chicoine added 11 kills and 23 digs. Maddie Skirmerhorn added 24 digs, as even though Purdue got outdug 87-86, the blocks were still fairly close, as Purdue outblocked Wisconsin 12-7 or 12-10, which isn't that close. And Wisconsin did win the serve pass battle, and they barely out-hit Purdue. But for Wisconsin, my takeaway for them is this: they didn't have Anna Smrek, which I totally understand, but this loss did eventually cost them the Big 12 Conference Championship, because now they were 3 matches behind them, and eventually Nebraska wound up clinching at least a share of the Big West Conference Championship. And I will also just say, Nebraska did eventually win the Big 10, and did I say Big West? I meant Big 10 Conference Championship outright, as Nebraska wound up winning the Big 10 Conference Championship outright on Sunday as they swept Iowa. And I also have to give a shout out to friend of the show, Robert Evans, as he said that Nebraska was going to beat Wisconsin. I don't know if he had Nebraska winning the conference, but I'm 99.999999999% certain Robert Evans, friend of the show of Set Point, had Nebraska winning the Big Ten Conference. So I have to give him his flowers because he called that way before the season began. I know Anna Smrek does make a difference, as now Wisconsin's lost 2 of their last 3. I know Wisconsin also just bounced back against Indiana, but now they have a big week ahead of them as they have Nebraska in Madison. That's going to be a big-time matchup. And here's the thing. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I'm hearing that Anna Smrek is officially healthy and ready to go. Wisconsin needs Anna Smrek in the worst way, because if they don't have her, then they lose a lot of their blocking, and they lose a huge force at the net offensively and defensively. Heading down to the city of Angels and the land of the Pac-12, we have number 2 Stanford outlasting UCLA 25 in 5 sets. UCLA won the first set 25-23. Then Stanford rolled to the second set 25-11. They won the third set 25-23, and it looked like they were going to win the fourth set, but UCLA had a huge surge to take that fourth set 29-27. But unfortunately, UCLA just ran out of gas as Stanford wound up winning the fifth set 15-7. I want to say Stanford led 8-0 at the side change. I'm not entirely certain, but honestly, they just blew that fifth set wide open, as Stanford was led by Kendall Kipp, who had 21 kills, while Elia Rubin had 18 kills. Kipp hit 409, while Rubin hit 350. McKenna Vicini and Katie Baird each had 12 kills, while Elena Ogilvy had 12 digs. Cami Minor had 10 digs to go along with 55 assists and 6 service aces, as Stanford as a team had 11 service aces. This is the thing about Stanford. They serve so tough, and if you're not stopping that serve, it's probably going to be an ace. Or if you're having to think about if that serve is going in or out, then it's probably going to be an ace. UCLA was led by Iman Njai, who had 16 kills, while Sheridan Leverett and Grace Olson added 12 kills. Unfortunately Anna Dodson had 9 kills, but there was a point. I'm looking too far ahead, as the Sunday matchup against Cal, UCLA losing this matchup really hurt them, as they missed out on a big-time win, which probably could have solidified them in the NCAA tournament. But UCLA eventually lost to Cal. Now, they didn't have Anna Dodson, which really hurts them. I know they still have Grace Olson and Desiree Becker, but they can only do so much. They can't do everything, because they're not 6'5" like Anna Dodson and whatnot. So I will say this about UCLA. I still think they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament, but it's going to be pretty close. If they beat USC, they're in the tournament for sure, but they have to go down to the Galen Center to beat USC. So UCLA is kind of a bubble team. I mean, they do have the win over Washington State, but so does USC, so that's something to have to factor in as well. Staying in Pac-12 land, we have number 6 Oregon taking down number 18 Arizona State in 4 sets, 25-18, 26-24, 10-25, and 25-23. Oregon was led by Morgan Lewis, who had 16 kills, while Gabby Gonzalez added 13 kills. Mimi Collier had 8 kills, but she also had 8 hitting errors. It's good that she got the bad game out of the way, and my takeaway for Oregon is this. Although they're not going to win the Pac-12 conference, most likely, it's a good win, because that's actually Arizona State's first loss. And something I didn't mention about BYU's loss to Kansas is that BYU suffered their first loss at home, and Arizona State suffered their first loss at home against Oregon. Arizona State was led by Marta Levinska, who had 26 kills while hitting .397, and Jelly Cyril added 10 kills. My takeaway for Arizona State is this. While it's great that Marta Levinska can have monster games, why does she have to have over half the team's kills? Is Arizona State trying to do its best USC impersonation with Skylar Fields? I mean, yes, it's good that they have an it-factor player, but they need to back her up with some other players who are willing to lighten the load for her, because if they don't, then Arizona State winning as a team and having multiple players offensively is really going to make things tough. Because we all know Marta Levinska is her when it comes to Arizona State women's volleyball. But if they have other players like Gelly and Maddie Shields stepping up, she had 6 kills, it would make Arizona State a much better team. But for the time being, I kind of feel that Arizona State missed the bus on this one. Because if they had beaten Oregon, they could have been for sure a top 16 team. But I think this loss kind of solidifies them as outside of the top 16, as they may need to get some help this weekend. Jumping over to Saturday's matchups and heading down to the land of the Yinzers. But first, before I do that, I gotta give a shout out to Mike Pat in the chat room. He said, "Good evening, Teran," and he liked my whole Miami brought the heat, and he liked that pun. And he also liked my whole risked it for the biscuit, and the biscuit got burned. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you like my puns. But next matchup we had was on Saturday, as this one, oh man, Peterson Event Center was jumping for this one, as number 7 Pitt reverse swept number 4 Louisville on Saturday, as Louisville took the first set 25-19 and edged out the second set 26-24. But Pitt used the reverse card and took the third set 26-24 and wound up taking the fourth set 25-21. But Louisville found themselves up 10-7 in set number 5, only to see Pitt tying it up at 10-10. But then Louisville had match point at 14-13, only to see Pitt tied up at 14-14. It took Pitt 2 set points, but a Louisville hitting error eventually gave Pitt the match. And it's a huge win for Pitt, as my takeaway for them is this: they needed this win in the worst way, because if they wanted to win the ACC, they needed to basically have this match, and they did. And they really came up big, and you're going to see why that win is so important. Olivia Babcock led the way with 23 kills, while Tori Stafford added 21 kills. She had 439, by the way, and she had 11 digs. Babcock had 12 digs, as Valeria Vasquez-Gomez added 15 kills to go along with 10 digs. Pitt hit 265, despite Louisville out-hitting them 315. They also got out-dug 75-68, and they got out-blocked by a slim margin. But they didn't miss too many serves, and they only had 6 service errors compared to Louisville's 11, as Louisville had two monster games. They had a monster game from Anna DeBeer, who had 29 kills while hitting 404, and she had 17 digs. Charity Looper added 24 kills while hitting 327, and she had 13 digs. My takeaway for Louisville is this: I don't understand how you out-dig and out-hit and get 2 monster games and you wind up losing. It's unfortunate for Louisville, because this loss might have cost them not only the top spot in the ACC, but a top 4 seed in general, as you're about to see why in a little bit. But for Louisville, this was such a tough way to go out, in my opinion, because if they win this matchup, they have the inside track of winning the conference. All they have to do is just beat Georgia Tech, and that's it. Because they have the tiebreaker over Florida State, and Florida State wouldn't have been able to do much, and they definitely would have had the tiebreaker over Pitt, and then like I said, all they would have needed to do was beat Georgia Tech, and that's that. But now, this gives Pitt and Florida State the inside track to finishing atop the ACC standings. And here's the thing: Florida State has the tiebreaker over Pitt, so they'll get the automatic qualifier, even though I'm certain they'll probably get in with that win over Pitt. So Louisville really missed out on a huge win. Unfortunately, they fell short, and it's just a shame, because I think Pitt is definitely a good team, but Louisville, here's my thing. Do they really need to have Anna DeBeer and Charity Looper carrying the load all together? I mean, I know Aiko Jones and Cara Kreese both had 8 kills apiece, but I will just say, they really can't have Anna DeBeer and Charity Looper just carrying the way. Where's PK Kong in this? I know she had 6 kills, and she also had 6 blocks, but still, it's not going to really get the job done altogether. But all in all, for Pitt, this was probably their biggest win of the season, and this was the match they needed to win, and they did. jumping over to some Big West Conference action, we had a little Big West Conference after dark as Cal Poly outlasted UC Davis in 5 sets, 22-25, 25-18, 28-26, 20-25, and 15-13 at San Luis Obispo at the Mott Athletics Gymnasium or Mott Athletics Center. Cal Poly was led by Emma Frederick, who had 17 kills, while Annabelle Thalkin had 13 kills, Tommy Stockham 12 kills, and Tess Massingale 9 kills. My takeaway for Cal Poly is this, and I'm going to make this quick. Obviously, losing Lizzie, I'm not even going to try to butcher her last name, but losing one of their top Lizzie Markovska, well, she didn't, I guess she was all right, because Tyler Hildebrand didn't really give me an update on the status of Lizzie Markovska, but she didn't really take too many swings, but I guess that could have been the extent of the injury nagging her from the win against Long Beach State, but I digress on that. But it's good to see Annabelle Falcon and Emma Frederick stepping up for Tommy Stockham and Lizzie Markovska. That's a huge win for Cal Poly, and you're about to see why in the next match I'm about to review or recap. For UC Davis, this is as disappointing of a loss as it gets. And not just because they're obviously in the Big West Conference tournament, but they still have not beaten a team in the Big West Conference named Long Beach State, Hawaii, or Cal Poly. Or UC Santa Barbara, because we can't forget about them as well. The loss is also disappointing because UC Irvine wound up going 2-0 this past week, and UC Irvine finished 9-9 ahead of UC Davis. So that actually means that UC Davis finishes 6th. They're seeded 6th, as you have to remember UC San Diego can't partake in the Big West Conference. But for UC Davis, they're now seeded 6th. And while that is good that they are avoiding UC Santa Barbara, they'll have to play Cal Poly again. Now, that it could be a good thing that UC Davis is playing Cal Poly again, but my takeaway is if they want to actually have success in the Big West Conference, they're actually going to need to beat a team named Long Beach State or Hawaii or UC Santa Barbara or Cal Poly. And now some of their losses against the teams like UC Irvine are starting to nip them in the butt, and eventually it has nipped them in the butt. And like I've mentioned in the past, it's not set point if I don't discuss some Big West Conference volleyball, as next matchup we have to recap is Hawaii taking down Long Beach State in 4 sets. So this was kind of a doozy right here. So Hawaii wound up taking the first set 25-21. They took the second set 25-23. Long Beach State stormed past them in set 3, winning it 25-14. And then Hawaii just had that extra gear as they wound up taking set 4, 25-17. Now here's the thing for Hawaii. For those that were basically following the match closely or that saw the match, Hawaii was actually down 16-5 in set number 1, and they eventually were down 18-8. Now most teams would have probably said, okay, well we've lost the set, we might as well just put in the reserves. Well, I give credit to Hawaii. They did not give up, and they actually went on a 10-0 run to tie the set up at 18 apiece. I think it was an 11-0 run to eventually take the lead in set number 1. And honestly, winning that set was what really kickstarted Hawaii. Because if they don't win that first set, I don't know if they have the momentum going forward. Because if you remember, they actually lost close sets against Long Beach State in the first meeting. Now, the shoe was on the other foot as Hawaii was able to take the close sets against Long Beach State in the first and second set. And then the fourth set, Hawaii just blew the fourth set open against Long Beach State, as I want to say they were down like 12-8 at one point, and then they went on a 3-0 run, and unfortunately for Long Beach State, they just could not catch up to them, as Amber Igidi had 21 kills as she hit 432. Kaylin Alexander added 19 kills. Taylor Ikinaga had 15 digs. As my takeaway overall for Hawaii is this was the biggest game for Hawaii. This was the game that Hawaii needed to win, and they did, because they tied with Cal Poly for second place in the Big West Conference. And you want to know what that means? It goes down to head-to-head in terms of matchups. The two split their two matchups together. So now it goes down to head-to-head sets won overall. And Hawaii wins that category 4-3. Or they win that category by 1 set, as Cal Poly won their meeting against Hawaii in 5 sets, while Hawaii wound up winning the first meeting against Cal Poly in 4 sets. So there you go. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It was actually 5-4 overall in sets. So Hawaii is the number 2 seed in the Big West Conference, while Cal Poly finishes 3rd. My takeaway for Long Beach State is this, and I'm about to put on my homer hat. So for those that want to judge and say, "Oh, you're being a homer," well, I have the homer hat on. All right, I'm just gonna say this. I've defended Long Beach State for a while, and it's so disappointing that they lost this one. And it's not the fact that they lost, it's how they lost. Because you're up 16-5 in set 1. You're supposed to win that more often than not. And they out-hit Hawaii 276 to 216. I know digs were deadlocked, but they also out-blocked them 8-5. But they did lose the service error, the service ace and service error battle, and they had 8 less kills than Hawaii. The positives, if there are any, if you're a Long Beach State fan, is that Natalie Glenn came off the bench and chipped in 10 kills. I want to say that is her first match back in, I want to say 3 weeks, because she didn't play against Riverside and Bakersfield, and then she didn't play against the likes of CSUN and Davis. Or, I'm sorry, Riverside and Davis, then CSUN and Bakersfield, and then Cal Poly and Santa Barbara, and then I'm guessing she didn't play against UC San Diego, even though she did practice that following Monday. I should also mention that I was such a terrible predictor, thinking that Long Beach State, UC San Diego, and Hawaii, UC San Diego were sneaky good matchups. Long Beach State and Hawaii both swept San Diego or UC San Diego on their respective days. But for Long Beach State, going back to them, I will say this. This is probably the match that they could not have afforded to lose. I know they've had multiple matchups where they could not have afforded to lose, but this is one of those matchups where this one's going to come back to haunt them. And losing to CSUN also comes back to haunt them. And I get it. They were without Savannah Chacon that match following the second set because of food poisoning. But that's why you have other players to step up. And if they're not stepping up, then there's something wrong. There's something going wrong. And I know Long Beach State has not been 100% throughout the entire year. They don't have Abby Carrick throughout the rest of the year. Grace O'Reilly, sadly, hasn't gotten a chance to play, even though I haven't really seen her game film from her past. Mara Hayes, sadly, got injured in practice and is most likely out for the year. I would put money that she is out for the year. But for Long Beach State, this is definitely a disappointing loss. And they're starting to look a little like USC Junior, except USC has pulled off some pretty good upsets here and there. Long Beach State only has the one big win over Texas, and they have a pretty solid win over Hawaii. But that's kind of where the buck stops. And the committee is probably, if the committee is thinking of putting Long Beach State into the tournament, I just don't think it's going to happen. And I really want Long Beach State to make it as an at-large, but the more I see Long Beach State and the more I see these losses, the more I start to wonder, does Long Beach State deserve an at-large when there's other teams deserving at-larges that are probably better than them? I'm starting to lean toward the yes factor on that. The only way Long Beach State makes the tournament is if they win the Big West Conference tournament or they upset UC Santa Barbara. Because you look at where Long Beach State is in terms of the Big West Conference tournament. Long Beach State faces UC Irvine in the first round. That could be a sneaky matchup because, yes, Long Beach State has Natalie Glenn. Yes, Long Beach State hosts the Big West Conference tournament. No, this isn't going to be the same UC Irvine team that it was the first meeting, because they still have some stud players. They have Hunter Rydell, Mariana Bertoloni, Nicole Feliciano is setting the offense really well, even as a freshman. Campbell Jensen is a dynamite libero. Ella Gardner, I think, is stepping up at the middle, taking a little bit of pressure off of Isabella Scarlett. So I would not be surprised if Long Beach State had to sweat that one out against UC Irvine. And it's a rivalry matchup, so all bets are off against Long Beach State and UC Irvine. And even if they get past UC Irvine, they still have to go take on UC Santa Barbara. And if they don't win that matchup, then they better hope that the committee has them as the last one in. But for Long Beach State, this is where you really should have beaten CSUN. You really should have beaten Hawaii on the road. And you really should have beaten Cal Poly, even though you were without Natalie Glenn. All right, the Homer hat's off. Now back to recapping these matches in a non-biased way. Staying on the West Coast and in Southern California, we had number 2 Stanford taking down number 24 USC in 4 sets. The Trojans won the first set 28-26, but then Stanford rolled through them in the second and third set 25-14 and 25-15. And then the fourth set, USC led 23-21. Stanford eventually wound up leading 24-23, and it was a dogfight in that fourth set. But Stanford eventually wound up taking it 32-30. It kind of reminded me of last year's matchup at the Galen Center between USC and Stanford, as Stanford kind of had to sweat that one out and take it. The only difference is that they weren't down 0-2. They were actually up 2-1, and they slammed the door shut on USC, as that actually is USC's first home loss. So we have to see 3 teams suffering their first home loss of the season. Stanford was led by Kendall Kipp, who had 18 kills. She hit 340, and she had 12 digs. It's only fitting that Kendall Kipp has a monster game, because she grew up in Southern California, around my neck of the woods, by the way. Oh, and she also had 5 service aces. Can't forget about that. I would also not be surprised if Kendall Kipp took over that fourth set late. Elia Rubin had 12 kills, as she added 10 digs. Katie Barrett had 11 kills. Sammy Francis, 9 kills. Elena Ogilvy, 21 digs. All in all for Stanford, they hit 257. This win eventually wound up locking up the Pac-12 championship, as Stanford also had 11 service aces. They outdug USC 64-58. They outblocked them as a team 12-7. And like I said, they won the service ace battle, though they did miss 17 serves, but that's because Stanford serves tough. Well, my takeaway for Stanford is this. I think this is a Final Four team. I really think they could really go to the Final Four if they play their cards right. And honestly, as long as they have Kendall Kipp, they're still contending no matter what. For USC, my takeaway for them is this. I don't know how you find a way to blow that fourth set. I know there were 21 lead changes. There were 21 ties and 13 lead changes. I get it. I get Stanford is a very, 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 very good team. But this is why you can't bank on being a home team that is dominant at home. I understand USC doesn't have the dogs like Stanford does. But here's the big reason why USC isn't as deep of a team that as most people think they are. They didn't have Skylar Fields. That is a major red flag, because now who has to step up? London Wajay. She had 12 kills. She had 15 digs. The poor girl also had 10 service errors. This is a freshman that has to step up. Why did USC have to have a freshman step up? I know Skylar Fields was out. I don't know the extent of why she was out, maybe because of injury, nor Anna Dodson, why she was out against Cal, but this is why you can't bank on one player to win. If you bank on one player to win, you're going to be so unsuccessful come NCAA tournament time, if you even make the tournament, or any other postseason conference tournament. The next kill leader for USC was Caitlin Smith, who had 8 kills. Lindsay Miller and Tyra Ariel both had 7 kills apiece. But like I said, USC hit a dismal 120. They can't hit 120 and expect to beat a team like Stanford. It just doesn't work that way. If they had Skylar Fields, they might have had a shot. I can assure you it might have gone 5. But sadly, this is where you really miss Skylar Fields, and this is where you really, really, really need to have that true number 2 outside hitter taking swings. Because if it's just the Skylar Fields show, what are they going to do next year? I mean, obviously, London Wajay is going to be taking over, but still, this year, it just looks so bleak for USC. I know they're going to win at least one NCAA tournament match, but I just don't see them going farther than the round of 32. Jumping over to SEC land, we had number 20 Florida taking on number 10 Arkansas, and the Razorbacks were able to celebrate their senior night with a 5-set win over the Gators. It was actually senior day, senior night, whatever. Arkansas took the first set 25-20, but the Gators took the second set 25-21. Arkansas took the third set 25-20, but the Gators took set 4 25-19. And Arkansas, despite having 10 ties and 4 lead changes, they took set 5 15-11 as they eventually wound up winning the match and staying within Kentucky in the SEC standings. Jillian Gillen continued her strong season as she had 26 kills along with 11 digs, and she hit .359. Taylor had added 19 kills, while Maggie Cartwright added 13 kills. My takeaway for Arkansas is this: a win is a win, and honestly, when you win twice against Florida, it's still rather impressive. I know Florida doesn't have Anna Dixon, Alexis Stuckey, and Kira Hudson, but still, it's a pretty good win, and you really have to give a tip of the cap to Florida, as my takeaway for them is this: if they're able to challenge teams like Arkansas, despite not having some of their best players, honestly, they can hang with anybody. As some could call this a star-studded loss or a good loss, as AC Fitzpatrick had 12 kills, AC Fitzpatrick and Kennedy Martin each had 19 kills, while Sophia Victoria added 12 kills. Kennedy Martin also had 18 digs to go along with her 19. Ellie McKissock had 18 digs, while Martin had the 12 digs, as she and Brooklyn DeLay are both battling it out for SEC Freshman of the Year. So all in all, for Florida, my biggest takeaway for them is this: they should make it into the NCAA tournament, but their path to the championship is going to be a whole lot tougher since they won't have the luxury of hosting. And then, speaking of Florida teams, heading down to Chapel Hill, we had number 25 Florida State taking on North Carolina. And in the beginning, it was looking pretty grim for the Noles as they lost the first 2 sets 25-19. And I basically said it on X: Florida State cannot afford this loss, because if they do, Pitt is all alone in first place in the ACC. Fortunately for Florida State, they turned on the gas. They took the third set 25-14. They took the fourth set 25-21, and they narrowly got out of that fifth set, winning it 15-12. The Seminoles were led by Maddie Snyder, who had 15 kills, while Audrey Koenig added 13 kills, while Audrey Rothman added 11 kills. My takeaway for Florida State is this: considering they needed this win, I'll give them credit. They wound up pulling off the win. And a win is a win at this point, especially when you're still trying to stay atop of the ACC standings. And it's not easy to stay atop of the ACC standings, especially since you now have the target on your back, being ranked and being so close to clinching that ACC championship. For North Carolina, they were led by Mabry Schaffmaster, who had 24 kills and 13 digs. She also hit .347. Sydney Nolan added 16 kills. She hit .577. And Safi Hampton had 12 kills and 17 digs. This is kind of that type of loss where North Carolina wishes they had this one back. But unfortunately, it is what it is. And they're most likely not going to make the NCAA tournament, as they're going to finish under 500. And that's pretty much going to do it. So we had a lot of automatic qualifiers clinched in terms of teams making it. So winning the America East Conference tournament was UMBC. The American Athletic Conference, which had no tournament, was SMU. Atlantic Sun Conference tournament, the automatic qualifier went to Florida Gulf Coast. Atlantic 10 went to Dayton. Big South went to High Point. Big 10, as we all know, went to Nebraska. Big 12, as we all know, went to Texas. The Coastal Athletic went to Delaware as they took down. I'm blanking on the Towson. Sorry, I knew it began with a T, but I'm getting all my T's and my I's mixed up. But Delaware took down Towson in the Coastal Athletic Conference Tournament Championship. Western Kentucky, no surprise there. They wound up winning the Conference USA Tournament. Wright State won the Horizon. Automatic Qualifier. Yale came out of the Ivy League and wound up winning that one. Fairfield came out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Coppin State came out of the MEAC. LIU came out of the Northeast. Remember, that's a team that's pretty good in men's volleyball. Now they're good in women's volleyball too. Pac-12 obviously was Stanford. The Patriot League or Patriot Conference was Colgate. The SoCon Conference was Wofford. Wofford, and that Southern Conference, the SoCon, is home to the Citadel. Remember, they had won 20 in a row, and now they are most likely on the outside looking in, and I don't think the Citadel is getting into the tournament. Maybe they'll get into the NIVC, but poor Citadel. They were amongst the last few teams undefeated, and then they lost, and sadly, they lost to Wofford, the Terriers, if I'm not mistaken. Southland Conference went to Southeastern Louisiana, which is darn right impressive. Coastal Carolina reclaimed their crown in the Sun Belt Conference, taking down James Madison. Very impressive win, if you ask me, as they have a stud freshman who has the most triple doubles. Which, oh man, I gotta give this girl a shout out, and I do not care what it takes. Jalen Stout is her. She has the NCAA women's volleyball record of 14 triple doubles this season. And this is just this season alone, as she had 22 kills, she had 16 digs and 22 assists in that Sun Belt Conference Championship over James Madison. So Jalen Stout is making her name known for Coastal Carolina. And we're not talking basketball here, we're talking volleyball here, as Jalen Stout is a beast. The SWAC Conference went to Jackson State. Grand Canyon wound up winning the Western Athletic Conference. And like I mentioned last week, Pepperdine was the first team to clinch the automatic qualifier of any team of the NCAA women's volleyball world, as they wound up winning the West Coast Conference, to no one's surprise. All right, that is going to do it for the Week 13 recap of the NCAA women's volleyball season. Now let's jump on into the AVCA Top 25 rankings, or the Top 25 Coaches Poll, as 25 through 21 consists of Baylor at 25, USC at 24, Florida State at 23, Houston at 22, and Western Kentucky at 21. 20 through 16 consists of Florida at 20, Dayton at 19, Arizona State at 18, Creighton at 17, and BYU at 16. 15 through 11 consists of Kansas at 15, Penn State at 14, Purdue at 13, Georgia Tech at 12, and Washington State at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Kentucky at 10, Arkansas at 9, Tennessee at 8, Louisville at 7, and Oregon at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Wisconsin at 5, Texas at 4, Pitt at 3, Stanford at 2, and your still number one team in the AVCA Division I Women's Volleyball Coaches Poll is Nebraska. So no one dropped out of the top 25, even though I think Baylor should. No offense, I'm just kidding, Baylor. I'm not trying to be mean to Baylor, but they're just not the team that they were back in the old days, or a few years back. But Pitt was a high riser. They jumped from 7 all the way up to 3. I actually really want to give them Team of the Week. I gave Team of the Week to Kansas because I think that's a nice little. I think they're deserving of it. And you want to know why? Because, well, for starters, they beat 2 ranked opponents. And then second of all, they beat BYU on the road, which was BYU's first home loss of the season. And that is never an easy place to win at. So, of course, Kansas is getting my Team of the Week. I really want to give it to Pitt, and I'm sorry to Pitt fans. Don't take it personally. I still love y'all. Y'all are awesome, but I had to give it to Kansas. At least I didn't give it to, like, Hawaii or something. Not that Hawaii isn't deserving of it, but I had to think about this a little bit, and Kansas had a big week, and now they're back in contention of hosting a hosting the regionals. So that is pretty much that when it comes to the NCAA Women's Volleyball or AVCA Top 25. We'll be getting back into the NCAA Women's Volleyball swing of things a little bit later, but right now I actually got to go over some NJC Women's Volleyball. Yes, NJC Women's Volleyball, and this actually comes from Division III, as Dallas College of Eastfield swept Century College in the Division III Championship 25-19, 25-11, and 25-22 as they wound up winning the championship. And get this, they actually went a perfect 35-0, which is just downright impressive, as it was their 29th sweep of the year, and it was basically the crowning jewel of their season. And it was their second national title and its third trip to the championship. So I am just very impressed. And I guess they won the national championship in 2017, which was also in Division III. And they finished up the following year as well. So all in all, for Dallas College Eastfield, it was a very impressive season. And finishing undefeated is no easy feat. Nebraska could be on that path to finishing undefeated. And I'm not trying to jinx them, but they could, hence the word could, be finishing undefeated as well. They just have to take care of a little bit of business along the way. As Azoria Davis led Eastfield with 15 kills to go along with 16 digs, as she also hit .389 as she collected the NJCAA Championship Most Valuable Player Award, which is downright impressive. So once again, I really have to give a shout out to the Harvester Bees of Dallas College of Eastfield on not only winning the NJCAA Division III Championship, but also finishing undefeated. And they had 29 sweeps as well. So I imagine, and I don't even think one match went the distance this year. I mean, I'm on the website right now, but I will just say I'm 95% certain that none of their matches went 5 sets. And none of them did, which is very impressive. So if we're doing the math correctly, they only lost 6 sets all year. So great job to Dallas College of Eastfield. All right, but that's going to do it for that little tidbit news right there. We're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we got some high school girls volleyball to recap, as Mater Dei is back on top of the girls volleyball world. Also, UCLA men's volleyball released their schedule, and we have some AVP Awards to go over, and we have Week 14, the final week of the NCAA women's volleyball season to go over. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you, from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well, and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports, because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on The Defining Moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as The Defining Moment, Sin City Sports, Big Cheese Sports, which I actually talked a little bit of volleyball on yesterday with Bernie Bango, and Chi-Town Weekly, which won't be going on next week, as I might be moving Set Point to Monday at 5 p.m., possibly. It all depends, because I actually have work at 6 p.m. I just am now realizing this harsh reality. Oh boy. Yeah, I forgot to mention that Set Point might be moving its time to like maybe 6:30 or 6:15, just because I have work until 6 p.m., which it is what it is at this point, though. Anyway, let's jump on into the second half of Set Point. Let's recap some high school girls volleyball, as Mater Dei is back on top of the girls volleyball world, as they wound up winning the CIF State Open Division championship. But how did they get there, you ask? How did they manage to get to the state championship? First and foremost, they actually had to get through the regional finals, as they actually had to get past the likes of Cathedral Catholic. Now, Cathedral Catholic is a pretty darn good team. They are the reigning national champion and reigning SoCal regional and state champion of the Open Division. So, of course, Cathedral Catholic was going to be bringing it. And I actually was in attendance of this match, but Mater Dei really showed their stuff. They nearly won the first set 25-22, and they won the second set 25-20. And suddenly, Mater Dei is up 2-0 on Cathedral Catholic. But then Cathedral Catholic really starts to turn it on in the third set, as they eventually win that third set 25-19. But then Mater Dei, and it was actually close early on in set 4. I want to say it was like 17-14, and then Mater Dei just really started to pull away. As eventually Mater Dei took the fourth set 25-16. My takeaway from Mater Dei is, well, obviously is this. It's a win, as at this point you have to win, otherwise your season is going to come to an end. According to Mater Dei statistics, Samara Gordon had 17 kills, while Isabel Clark had 13 kills. Laylee Ostavar had 10 kills. The main story from that match was Emma Kingston, a freshman middle blocker who's 6'4". She had 8 kills, and she was just absolutely amazing. And she's only a freshman, and Dan Odell, her head coach, said that she did a top-notch job against one of the best middles in California, in Jenna Haynes, as that is a freshman going up against a Michigan-bound senior right there. And all in all, it was just a great night for Mater Dei, as Jenna Haynes did all that she could. She kind of got some backup. I don't have their stats in front of me, unfortunately, and unfortunately I might have misplaced them. You don't really get like full-on statistics when it comes to this. It's not like NCAA women's, when you attend an NCAA volleyball match and then they just hand you the final stats. You kind of have to take your own stats in terms of the high school level, or you have to basically look from the coach's perspective or the scorebook. But Maya Evans was doing her thing at the libero position, and like I said, Jenna Haynes was doing everything she could at the middle blocker position. She and Samara Gordon are both bound for Michigan, so Michigan fans, I know, or Michigan volleyball fans for that matter, I know your season hasn't been great, but hang on, help is on the way next season, as Samara Gordon and Jenna Haynes are going to be helping y'all. Your future is in really good hands. As May Cordas also stepped up for Cathedral Catholic, Ava Moy also had some good swings as well. But unfortunately, it was just too little too late, as Cathedral Catholic saw their season come to an end against Mater Dei on the road, and they saw their reign as national champion come to an end as well. This was actually the rubber match between these two teams, as both these teams beat one another in separate tournaments. Mater Dei beat Cathedral Catholic in the Volleypalooza tournament in Texas, while Cathedral Catholic beat Mater Dei in the Dave Mose tournament in Huntington Beach, specifically Edison High School. But eventually Mater Dei wound up winning the rubber match, and it's always a great time when Cathedral Catholic and Mater Dei face one another. We could be seeing them facing each other again in the near future. We'll see. Alright, but that's that for that little matchup right there, as the NorCal representative was Archbishop Mitty, as they wound up beating St. Francis 25-12, 25-21, 19-25, and 25-20. Kind of almost like the Mater Dei matchup, except Mitty just rolled through that first set. And St. Francis is not the same St. Francis as they were last year when they went undefeated up until the state championship match. Alright, but now we had the Northern California representative, Archbishop Mitty, taking on the Southern California representative in Mater Dei. And it was the Battle of the Monarchs. Mater Dei Monarchs versus Archbishop Mitty Monarchs. Red versus black. SoCal versus NorCal. The list goes on and on. So the first set, Mater Dei was just on one, as they really were serving tough. They had two aces, and Samara Gordon was just picking up where she left off in the previous match. Also, Isabel Clark and Laylee Ostavar were stepping up as well. As Mater Dei took the first set 25-18, as all Archbishop Mitty can do is ride the coattails of some of their best hitters, a.k.a. Isabella Ramiro, who eventually had 4 kills to start out. Now, the second set, Archbishop Mitty was serving a whole lot tougher, and they actually led by as many as 9. Mater Dei actually kept chipping away at it, and they tied it up at 22 apiece. But then Archbishop Mitty just took the third set, or they took the second set, as it was one-on-one with Isabella Ramiro and Laylee Ostavar, and 95% of the time it's going to be the offense winning that one, more often than not. As I think Mater Dei was expecting Archbishop Mady to go to the left side, but unfortunately that was not the case, as it's basically a one-on-one battle, and unfortunately the coverage, not trying to nitpick, but it just wasn't there on that one. As Archbishop Mady took that second set 25-23. Then in set number 3, Mater Dei just kind of restored their order as they took that third set 25-15, as Samara Gordon was just doing her thing. Isabel Clark was just doing everything in her power to take a little pressure off of Gordon. Mater Dei didn't really run the middle all that much, which is kind of interesting, but it's all good. Maybe Archbishop Mady was ready for it. And then the fourth set, Mater Dei jumped out to an early lead. They actually led by as many as 9, and then Archbishop Mady got back to within 1. But unfortunately for Archbishop Mady, the clock struck midnight, and Mater Dei eventually danced into the night, winning set number 4, 25-21, and the match. As Mater Dei is the 2023 CIF State Open Division champion, as this is their second state championship in the second under Dan O'Dell and second in the highest division. As from what I got, Samara Gordon finished with 17 kills, while Isabel Clark, the CIF Southern Section Division 1 Player of the Year, she had 12 kills. Layli Ostavar, 11 kills. For Archbishop Mady, they were led by McKenna Crossan, who had 16 kills by my count. Amaya Kuchibo. I'm not going to pronounce her name correctly. Amaya Kuchibotla. Amaya Kuchibotla and Caitlin Cook both had 10 kills, and Isabella Ramiro had 9 kills. All by my count, by the way. My thing for Archbishop Mady is this, and here's my takeaway. It sucks losing in the final, but here's the thing. They only had 4 seniors on their team, so there's no shame in saying that they lost. They lost to the better team, because Mater Dei had like some senior-laden players, like Julia Kakis, who's bound for Brown, Isabel Clark, she's bound for San Diego. Like I said, Samara Gordon, she's bound for Michigan. Emma Kingston is one of the most phenomenal freshmen we have seen so far. We also have Layli Ostavar, who's probably the top recruit in her class, in my opinion. And Mater Dei is probably going to get better as the year progresses. Yes, it's going to take a little while to replace Samara Gordon and Isabel Clark, but I really think Mater Dei is going to be really good in the near future because they bring back their middles. They have their other setters, as Ava Ostavar, who's bound for UC Santa Barbara or committed to UC Santa Barbara only as a junior. She'll be back running the offense as well. And then I'm certain they'll have someone to fill the void in at libero following the graduation of Melissa Kawa, who is bound for Stanford. So keep an eye out for her. And also Tessa Hurley and Sydney Razuski are both players to watch for next year's team, as Hurley and Razuski were both in the rotation for Mater Dei in terms of serving. And honestly, that's big time right there, just because if you're in a serving rotation, well, obviously you serve tough, and Coach O'Dell really thinks that you do well. And Tessa Hurley is actually a senior, so Sydney Razuski could be amongst the players to start at the libero position. Also, there's Kayla Ostavar, who's only a junior. So time will tell on who will be the new libero for Mater Dei, but I'm certain they'll get that void filled sooner rather than later. Alright, but that's going to do it for the high school girls volleyball scene. Soon we'll be getting some high school boys volleyball, but not for a while. And I'm certain Mater Dei is going to be finishing number 1 in the nation, just because they were number 1 on Max Preps, and they were number 1 on the AVCA's top 25. or the USA Today Top 25. But regardless, Mater Dei should be the national champion, as they only lost 2 games all season. Once to Miracosta, which, remember, that one was back all the way back in September, following them playing in the Volleyball tournament in Texas, which that's a tough turnaround, and playing on the road makes it even tougher. And they also didn't have their middles, and they weren't 100%, and they were 100, and they were obviously fatigued. And then the other loss came at the hands of Cathedral Catholic in the Dave Mose tournament final, losing 2-1. But outside of that, Mater Dei is back on top. Big shout out to Dan Odell and his team, as this team is going to be scary good in the near future. How good? Time will tell. All right, but that's going to do it for the high school girls volleyball talk. All right, let's talk about some UCLA men's volleyball, as, UCLA released their schedule this past week, and oh man, they've got a loaded lineup. And remember, they are the reigning national champions, so those gutty little Bruins deserve a little bit of praise right here and now, as their schedule consists of, according to their website, Fort Valley State on January 4th. That will be a home game. That's their season opener, and probably when they'll raise the championship banner in Pauley Pavilion. Then UCLA will also play Morehouse that day. And then the following Thursday, January 11th, UCLA will fly out to Romeoville to take on Lewis. And then 2 days after that, UCLA will play their former assistant coach, John Hawks, and Loyola Chicago. Then after that, they've got the First Point Collegiate Challenge, which I will most likely be at, as UCLA plays Ohio State in Austin, Texas, on January 19th at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, which will be 4 p.m. Central Time. Then UCLA will also play Penn State in the First Point Collegiate Challenge on January 20th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, which is 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Then UCLA returns home to California on January 25th to host UC Santa Barbara. Then the day after, they hit the road to San Diego or La Jolla to take on UC San Diego. Then on January 31st, UCLA will hit the road to Irvine to take on UC Irvine, as John Sparrow gets to face his former team that he used to coach. And that's going to be on a Wednesday. That's such a weird match, but I definitely want to go to that one. I missed out on not seeing UC Irvine, and I'm not going to make that mistake twice. UCLA then returns back to Pauley Pavilion on February 2nd, where they will play UC Irvine. And then February 9th, UCLA hits the road to the 5-6-2 to take on Long Beach State. And then the day after, UCLA hosts Long Beach State. Then UCLA kicks off MPSF play on Valentine's Day, February 14th, when they host Pepperdine. And then February 17th, UCLA plays at Pepperdine. Then UCLA will be hitting the road at Provo to take on BYU on February 23rd and 24th. Then UCLA will hit the road. I use that term very loosely, as they're not going that far. They'll be heading to Galen Center to take on USC on February 29th, with the time to be determined on Thursday. And then UCLA and USC square off at Pauley Pavilion on March 2nd, a Saturday. Then there's the Pac-12 Big Ten Challenge, which actually is moved because you have the First Point Collegiate Challenge earlier in this season, as UCLA and Penn State get to face one another in Los Angeles, as I imagine this is going to be at Pauley Pavilion, just because I don't see it. It's either it's going to be at Pauley Pavilion or it's going to be at Galen Center. But regardless, it wouldn't make sense to have USC playing at UCLA and vice versa. But anyway, Penn State is playing UCLA a second go-around on Friday, March 8th. And then UCLA will play Ohio State on Sunday, March 10th. Quite interesting right there. Then on March 29th and March 30th, UCLA hosts Stanford in some MPSF play. Then on April 5th and April 6th, UCLA hosts Grand Canyon. And then April 11th, UCLA heads down to Irvine to take on Concordia Irvine. And then April 13th, a Saturday, UCLA will host Concordia Irvine, most likely in its senior night. And then the MPSF tournament is on April 17th all the way through April 20th, and it's basically going to be held in Los Angeles. It says in Los Angeles, but which Los Angeles? Either is it Galen Center or is it going to be Pauley Pavilion? I imagine it's probably going to be... It's one of the two. It's 50-50. I hope it's a Galen Center, because that's actually closest, in my opinion. It's the closest to me. But that is going to do it for UCLA's schedule. I'm definitely going to check them out when they play Long Beach State. It's always a packed house when the Beach and the Bruins face one another in men's volleyball. Definitely going to check them out when they play UC Irvine. I'm also going to check them out when they play in Austin, Texas. So, yeah, that's pretty much going to do it right there, as I'm looking forward to seeing what the Bruins can do. And USC is the site of the 2024 MPSF tournament, as I might need to get into contact with USC on possibly being a member of the media. If not, I'll just do whatever I can to go to the game as a spectator. I highly doubt I can make all 3 games because if you know my circumstances, it's a little tough for me to get around all that much, but what can you do? If I'll for sure go to the championship match, that's for sure. But what I got to do is I got to make my connections with USC and make sure I am able to maybe secure a spot at the media table. If not, I'll just go as a spectator. It would just mean I can't bring my backpack because of the clear bag policy. But it is what it is sometimes. All right, but that's going to do it for UCLA's men's volleyball schedule. Jumping over to some AVP action. Yes, AVP. Unfortunately, we did not have an AVP championship, which really made me sad face. And yes, I said it really made me sad face. So, sadly, we didn't get the AVP championship, but we do have some awards that were given out, the postseason awards. We'll start off with the best defender. On the women's side, that was awarded to Kristen Nuss. And sadly, I did not make predictions for this just because, well, they didn't give me a chance to make predictions for this. And then on the men's side, Taylor Crabb was the one that earned the best defender of the AVP for this season. So great job to Kristen Nuss and Taylor Crabb. Now for the best blocker. That honor on the women's side belongs to Brandy Wilkerson. And she is just a force at the net. And she is going to do great things for Canada's beach volleyball team. And she is definitely a talent unmatched, as Melissa Humana-Perez should be very, very blessed to have her as a partner. And then on the men's side, Andy Benish was the one that was named the best blocker in terms of the AVP for this season. So great job to them. Now, best offensive player on the women's side, we had Kelly Cheng. I almost said her maiden name, Kelly Clace, but it's Kelly Cheng. She was the best offensive player, and with her and Sarah Hughes just having the greatest connection since Shaq and Kobe from the Lakers, there's no doubt in my mind she deserves this. And then for the best offensive player, that belonged to Miles Partain. The Miles Partain, the former UCLA star. He was named best offensive player, which was very amazing. Pretty cool if you ask me. And then best server, that belonged to Betsy Flint. Best server probably could have gone to Julia Scholes, in my opinion. But I'm not trying to take the award away from her. I think it all depends on statistics and who votes for this stuff. But I think Betsy Flint being partnered with Julia Scholes definitely helps her get that award, and it helps out her serving game just because Julia Scholes has a big old jump serve, and Betsy Flint doesn't have a jump serve, but her serve has so much spin to it, and it's so tough to corral. And then for best server on the men's side, it is Taylor Sander, as this dude has a rocket for a serve. And I know it's not moonshot-wise, but Taylor Sander is a really good server, and the dude serves very tough. Now for most improved, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about Betsy Flint. So Julia Scholes actually got most improved, and honestly, well-deserved on her part. She was actually named Rookie of the Year last year, so now this year she is the most improved, which is pretty scary if you ask me. So Betsy Flint and Julia Scholes are going to be taking over the scene, and soon I could really see Julia Scholes having a bright future for USA beach volleyball. I'm really looking forward to what she can do, because I definitely think she has that it factor. And then most improved on the men's side belongs to Andy Benish, as he actually repeats as the most improved. So if he's improving from last year, from the previous year, and from last year, then that's going to spell trouble for all of Andy Benish's opponents. And then Rookie of the Year is actually Megan J. Rice. Yes, Megan J. Rice. Not Megan Rice, not that Megan Rice. Megan J. Rice, the former Redondo Union / UC Santa Barbara / LMU beach volleyball player. Also, I kind of got to give a little personal shout to her. I really appreciated her helping me out get interviews from the 4-man beach volleyball tournament in Newport Beach. She's awesome sauce. And I'm happy she got Rookie of the Year, and she's going to do great things for the AVP, and I'm happy to call her a friend. Hope to get her on the show one day. And then Rookie of the Year for the men's side of things is DJ Klasnick. Now, that's not his full name, but if you know who DJ Klasnick is, this dude is a beast, as he is the king of the moonshot, as he has this big moon serve, which it's pretty tough to corral if you're not ready for it. And it could be pretty deadly, if you ask me. So, DJ Klasnick is the Rookie of the Year on the AVP side of things, on the men's side. So, that should be it for all of the awards, though I'm pretty certain they did not get the most valuable player or the most outstanding player. But regardless, that's all the AVP awards we have for the time being. I kind of promoted the first 2 awards and then kind of slacked off just because work and all that, but it's all good. Alright, but that's going to do it for the AVP portion of the show. Now let's break down some of these top matchups to watch for in Week 14. The final week of the NCAA women's volleyball season altogether in the regular season. Alright, so we actually have a solid matchup today, as of this recording, as we have Pepperdine playing at SMU, and SMU beat Pepperdine straight sets. I said this was going to be a solid, sneaky good matchup, but SMU just swept Pepperdine. But it just goes to show this is kind of a final tune-up matchup. So SMU playing Pepperdine, it could go either way in terms of the final result. I mean, obviously SMU won, but this could either be a good thing or it could be a great thing. It could be a great thing for Pepperdine just because they got the loss out of the way. Now they can only go up from here. For SMU, this is a confidence booster going into the NCAA tournament just because they do have a win over Florida State, which is definitely going to go a long way. And they've got a few other good wins here and there. All right, now we jump to Tuesday's matchups to watch for, as everyone's saying that the really good matchups start on Wednesday. I beg to differ. Tuesday is a pretty solid matchup. We got number 24 USC taking on number 6 Oregon at Matthew Knight Arena. Now, here's the thing for USC. If they want to have a statement road win, they kind of got to win this one. Because after this is their final tune-up on the road. Because if they go on the road and they face like a Nebraska or a Wisconsin or, heaven forbid, a Stanford or anything of that sort, I don't think USC will be getting out of that second round, if you ask me. If anything, USC really needs to show their stuff. And here's my thing. If they have Skylar Fields, they could for sure have a chance to win. But without Skylar Fields, Oregon is going to flatten them. But I will say this about USC. They're a solid team. I mean, London Wood J is coming into her own. My only thing is that does she have the help that she needs, just as much as Skylar Fields has the help as she needs. That all depends. All right, now we get on into Wednesday's matchups, and this is going to be fun. We start off with number 12, Georgia Tech at number 7, Louisville. It's funny how this matchup is no longer for the ACC crown, as Louisville needs all the help they can get to at least clinch a share. As Louisville would need to see Pitt losing once and Florida State losing their final match of the season on Saturday, but more on that later. But this is going to be a great matchup. Georgia Tech won the first meeting between Louisville, and here's my thing for Louisville. If they don't want to fall further down, they actually have to win this matchup. And they can't just walk into this matchup thinking, oh, we're going to win this one easy. No, Georgia Tech beat them the first time around. And Bianca Bertolino has ice in her veins when she serves, and she has a deadly jump serve. So don't be surprised if Georgia Tech makes Louisville sweat this one out. And Georgia Tech's probably mad. I know they bounced back with that win over Syracuse, but they kind of need a little bit of a bigger bounce-back game. Speaking of the ACC, we have Miami at number 3 Pitt on Wednesday as well. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why is this a matchup to watch for? Well, the first meeting, Pitt and Miami went 4 with Pitt winning. And here's the thing. If Pitt loses this matchup, Florida State has at least a share of the ACC crown locked up. That's a big thing right there. And that would give Florida State the automatic qualifier. I doubt Pitt is going to lose against Miami, but it's something to watch for just because Pitt would not have a share of the ACC crown. Not that that matters, just because all that matters is the automatic qualifier, but if Pitt loses this matchup against Miami, they are not going to be a top 4 seed, that's for sure. Now jumping over to the SEC, and if it weren't for another certain matchup this week, this would be the match of the week. Number 10 Kentucky at number 9 Arkansas. So Kentucky barely beat Arkansas the first go-around, but now the ball is in Arkansas's court, and this is Kentucky's chance to prove itself as a top 8 team. Because you remember, they swept Tennessee as well as they beat Arkansas the first go-around. And Kentucky is straight up humming. I want to say they've won like 13 in a row, but now the true test begins as they have Florida the following in their final match of the regular season, and then they also have this matchup. Now Arkansas, speaking of Florida, they had to go 5 twice, so I'm hoping for Arkansas State that they learned a lot about themselves in that 5-set match, and they better lay off the mistakes if they want to beat this Kentucky team on its home floor. If they do, then we have a lot of chaos happening in the SEC. And they could still potentially be in the running for a top 8 spot. Jumping back to the Pac-12, we have number 18 Arizona State at number 11 Washington State. All right, if Arizona State wants to have any sort of shot at hosting or being a top 16 or hosting the regionals, Arizona State's got to win this matchup. If they don't win this matchup, they're not a top 16 seed. That's it. That's all I got to say. And then for Washington State, I think they're still locked in as a top 16 team. The only way they don't lock themselves in is if they lose this matchup and then they lose to Washington, which could be a sneaky good matchup. But here's my thing for Washington State. I'm certain they can win this matchup, but they just cannot allow Marta Levinska to just go off. If they do, then there may be some problems. And then, contrary-wise for Arizona State, Marta Levinska could possibly can't really be the only one that carries the team. It just doesn't work that way. And then jumping down to Texas, we have number 22 Houston at number 25 Baylor. I mean, it's ranked on ranked, so I kind of have to give it a little praise. I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor lost this matchup, and this is kind of a get-right game for both of these teams. I would expect Houston to come out on top, but don't count out Baylor just because it is in Waco. But for Houston, I will say this. They kind of need a get-right game more. So, I mean, Baylor needs a get-right game in the worst way. But Houston, if they want to have another at least a Sweet 16 run, they got to have this win. And as we all know, Thursday is Thanksgiving, but on Black Friday, we have the match of the week. We have number 1 Nebraska at number 5 Wisconsin. Now, Nebraska has locked up the Big Ten, and this is a little anticlimactic. I would kind of prefer number 10 Kentucky at number 9 Arkansas as the match of the week, but this is just as important for Wisconsin. With Anna Smrek back, and with them being the home team, Wisconsin definitely has a shot at winning. My thing is for Nebraska is that they have so much pressure on them. They're the last undefeated team in NCAA women's volleyball this season, and it wouldn't be a bad thing if they lost. I don't think they're going to go down the rankings if they lose. If the committee puts them behind Stanford just because they lost to Wisconsin, then I gotta question the committee on that one, because Nebraska has a win over Stanford. You can't put Stanford ahead of Nebraska. In my opinion, unless I'm missing something, unless Minnesota beats Nebraska, I'm 99% certain Nebraska is the 1 seed. But they have a lot of pressure in this matchup against Wisconsin, as Nebraska is the only undefeated team, and it's so tough to remain undefeated. Yes, I was talking about the NJCAA team that went undefeated, but still, in NCAA Division I, it's really tough to stay undefeated because the deck is pretty stacked. Not against Nebraska, but there are some pretty stacked teams. There are a lot of face cards in that deck. But I'm expecting a barn burner between the Huskers and the Badgers. Also on Friday, we have a sneaky good matchup from the SEC. Number 9 Arkansas at Auburn. Alright, this is kind of a sneaky good game just because you never know with Auburn. This is kind of a part of Arkansas's gauntlet, as they had Ole Miss and Florida last week, and now this week they close out with Kentucky and Auburn. You never know with Auburn just because sometimes, hence the word sometimes, they could pull out a big-time win. I mean, look at what Georgia did against Arkansas. So, if Arkansas thinks they're going to waltz into this matchup and Auburn's going to hand them a win on a silver platter, they're dead wrong. Then we have another sneaky good matchup. We have number 11 Washington State at Washington. Alright, well, this isn't as great of a matchup, but it's something to watch for because, well, for starters, if Washington State loses and they somehow lose to Arizona State, they could fall out of the top 16, which means they wouldn't be able to host in terms of regionals. But in my opinion, I think Washington State is a top 16 team regardless of their losses. But winning these matches would definitely do their confidence a whole lot of good, especially since they had a lot of bumps in the road, losing to the likes of Oregon, Oregon State, UCLA, and then USC all the way back when they played at Galen Center. So, all in all for Washington State, this is kind of their final tune-up before the NCAA tournament. And then for Washington, this is kind of their last gasp of a possible push to make the NCAA tournament. Do I think Washington can make the NCAA tournament? It depends. This is certainly not Washington's better years. And I feel bad for the Huskies. Just because, for starters, I really think that Washington is such an underrated team, and this is obviously a changing at the guard was in store just because reasons and whatnot. And Leslie Gabriel is doing all that she can to fill in for Keegan Cook after he went to Minnesota. So all in all, for Washington, I think this week is kind of their last gasp for a possible making of the NCAA tournament. I still think they're a solid program, but this is clearly, hence the word clearly, not the same Washington team from years past. This is certainly not the Washington team that is, that made the Final Four back in the COVID year. But all in all, this is a sneaky good matchup. This is the Apple Cup. You never want to underestimate it. So there you go. And then staying in the Pac-12, we have UCLA at number 24, USC. All right, USC, you lost to Stanford. Now what? This is an important week for USC because I know the deck is kind of stacked against them when it comes to beating Oregon at Oregon, but if they want to have a good shot at maybe winning one NCAA match in the tournament, they kind of got to beat UCLA. And for UCLA, this could be their last chance of possibly making the NCAA tournament. Because if I recall correctly, Oregon State is on UCLA's docket this week. And while they do have a win over Washington State, so does UCLA. This is kind of UCLA's last chance at making the NCAA tournament. And you also have to take a deep dive into UCLA's schedule. They do have a few losses here and there that kind of raise some eyebrows, like the Arizona loss and the recent Cal loss. So for UCLA, they really, really need to win this matchup. This is the matchup that they have to win. If they don't win this matchup, they could be 50-50 in terms of making the NCAA tournament. I would hate to see those Bruins miss the NCAA tournament because I basically was calling it and saying UCLA is going to make the NCAA tournament. And if they make me look like a liar, well, I deserve to have tomatoes thrown by USC fans. Even though I'm kind of pro-USC, but I digress. Alright, but now for the last day of the regular season. Number 20 Florida at number 10 Kentucky. This is kind of a final tune-up game for Florida. And then for Kentucky, this is kind of maybe the match to lock up the... Well, it all depends. If they beat Arkansas, then this is definitely their final tune-up matchup. But if for some odd reason they lose, and then Tennessee runs the table, and then Tennessee and Kentucky are tied with one another for the SEC standings, then it gets really interesting. Though I think Kentucky has the tiebreaker over Tennessee in terms of like point differential, because they both split their meetings. They both won against one another in 3 sets. So I'm guessing it goes to points scored overall between the two teams. So it gets really down to the calculators and the pluses and minuses and whatnot. Then we have another sneaky good matchup. We have number 16 BYU at TCU. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how is this a sneaky good matchup? Well, you never know. You saw BYU and how they lost to Kansas State twice. And they're coming off of a home loss to Kansas. So, and TCU is a sneaky good team. They're kind of trying to make one final push. I mean, Kansas State could also be on the bubble. I am certainly no bracketologist, that's for sure. But don't be surprised if TCU throws everything at BYU, including the kitchen sink. And then the last matchup to go over and the last matchup to watch for is none other than Notre Dame at Florida State. So you're probably wondering, well, why is this a matchup to watch for, Teran? Have you lost your marbles? No. If Florida State wins this matchup, well, then they're the ACC champions and, well, at least co-conference champions, and they get the automatic qualifier since they have the head-to-head against Pitt, because the two teams only played once, and the Noles wound up winning in 5. But if Florida State winds up losing to Notre Dame, then Pitt, if they run the table, they would wind up getting the automatic qualifier and winning the ACC championship. And in a conference that has been ran by Louisville and Pitt and Georgia Tech, I don't think anybody had Florida State on their bingo card, except for Mike Pat. He's a Florida State guy. But all in all, I really got to give Florida State their flowers. I didn't think that Florida State wasn't going to have this big of a season. But to be one win away from winning the ACC and getting the automatic qualifier, I'm impressed. I think the Noles really have earned it, and they've turned me into a liar. And you have to remember, this is a Florida State team that's nowhere near as talented as last year's team. But they managed to accomplish some sort of accomplishment. I think it was like the fastest to like 20 wins in Florida State women's volleyball history or something like that. Regardless, Florida State has their matchup to watch for against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they're coached by Salima Rockwell. They're going to be throwing everything in the kitchen sink and the toilet and the refrigerator and the printer and the recliner and the couch. They're throwing everything they have at Florida State to make sure they play spoiler. And then that is going to do it for the regular season, as Sunday is Selection Sunday, and it's going to be nationally televised on ESPN, which is awesome sauce, as it's the, whatchamacallit, the selection show is going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific time. I originally saw it was going to be at noon Pacific time, but then they switched it up to a different time, which made me sad face. Which, I mean, it is what it is. I hope the selection show is not switched, because if it is, I'm going to scream. And y'all don't want to hear me. Y'all don't want to hear that. So, according to NCAA Women's Volleyball X, Selection Show TV update on the day before Veterans Day, November 10th, 2023. For the first time ever, the Division I Women's Volleyball Selection Show will be broadcasted on ESPN. The fact that it wasn't broadcasted on ESPN2 was a crime. Make sure to watch Sunday, November 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Alright, so if it's not on at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, I'm going to race some HE double hockey sticks. There's going to be more heck raised than my notifications earlier in the day, because I made a little bit of a joke earlier regarding 6 rotations, but I will say this. I was at work, and then I had to clarify something. I wasn't trying to poke fun at Nebraska. I was just joking around with 6 rotations, and I have to give a shout-out, and I guess I wouldn't call this a big-time shout, but John Meyer kind of came to my defense. So, I mean, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. Someone thought I was a Nebraska fan or a Nebraska volleyball account, and then he kind of had to set someone straight. He said, Set Point is not a Husker account. They're a national volleyball account. Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying I'm a national volleyball account, because I do my best to try to cover everything volleyball. And he says, this is the funny part, I believe their personal fandom is for one of the Cali teams. First and foremost, never say Cali. But maybe he ran short on characters, but you could have just put CA. But I digress. And then he said, I read their reply as poking fun at and being sarcastic in response to an ongoing joke on 6 rotations with Mick, with a little blushy smiley face. So thank you to John Meyer for kind of coming to my defense and kind of clarifying to the person, I would say that was accusing me of being a Nebraska volleyball fan, super fan, or a Nebraska volleyball fan account, but it was just a harmless little joke, and yeah. And I like I told John Meyer, when it comes to being a homer in terms of personal fandom, I try not to be a homer, but when I do, I put on the homer hat. But yeah, John Meyer gets a shout out from Set Point. He gets the Set Point salute because and apparently my notifications were being blown up because 6 rotations had dropped their video, and I'm not going to spoil anything. You got to watch the video. Make sure to show Daniel Gilman, friend of the show, former guest of Set Point, some love, as well as Mick Haley. And on that note, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Before I leave, I will tell you all this. I will be at the Pyramid in Long Beach on Wednesday for the quarterfinals of the Big West Conference Tournament. And I'll also be there on Championship Saturday for the finals of the Big West Conference Tournament. However, I won't be there on Friday just because I'm busy and I got to make my money. But on that note, it's time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Big shout out to the chat room, Patty Backs, Mike Pat, and Davidson Crooks. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great Thanksgiving. Be safe. I just want to also say this. I am thankful to everyone who has supported me through the good times and the bad, through those that just listen just because they want to hear something. But I'm also thankful for my IE Sports Radio family and for those that continue to support me. I'm thankful for the SIDs that get me into the Long Beach State and UC Irvine volleyball matches. I'm thankful to everyone who has basically liked my content. And I'm also thankful for Larry B and the entire IE Sports Radio family. If I missed anybody, I will let you all know, but expect a post later on in the week. See you all on Wednesday for the Big West Conference Women's Volleyball Tournament. Have a great rest of the week. Happy Thanksgiving. And I will see you Wednesday. Peace!